The Australian Academy of Project Management, Charter Australia, welcomes you to the Certificate 4 of Project Management course. This course is presented as a self-paced e-learning course. These online modules are supported by the UNEP textbook. Successful completion of this course and award of the Certificate 4 is based on two course components. The first component is the completion of this self-paced course and the activities that you are asked to do at the end of most modules. You have been provided with a project case study on which to base your activities. You have also been provided with a set of project templates which you can use to document activities. The second part of the course is an assignment where you need to show how you have applied the knowledge you have learned on the course on a project in a work environment. Students who are not currently working or who do not currently work on projects can simulate the project work by producing documentation for a simulated project of your choice. The project documentation you produce is called a portfolio of evidence, or POE. It will consist of actual project documentation, or in cases where that is not appropriate, an explanation of the process. The entire project must be documented in the Assessment Record Book, or ARB, and submitted to Charter Australia for assessment. Please refer to your detailed instructions on Chase Online. Module 1. Overview of Project Management. Project management is all about the way projects are defined, planned and managed. At the Certificate 4 level, this is all about the coordination of the activities, resources and outcomes desired for the successful achievement of the project plan. Before anyone can hope to successfully manage or coordinate any project, a good understanding of what a project is and how successful project managers apply their skills and knowledge must be gained. At this point in time, you must be asking, how will this course benefit me? Well, the most important outcome will be that you have gained the knowledge and confidence to work as an effective team member or team leader on a project and be able to support the project manager. It will provide you with an understanding of project practices and principles which are applied to every project regardless of industry. It will enable you to apply that knowledge in a clear and structured way in order to be a valuable contributor to that project. It will also give you an understanding of the practical tools and techniques which can be applied to your project work, and after you have completed this course and all the assignments, you will gain a nationally recognized qualification, a Certificate 4 in Project Management. The course is aligned to the Australian Competency Standards for Project Management, and you will need to demonstrate that you can apply these standards in your project. Once you have gained your Certificate 4, you will automatically be eligible for certification with the Australian Institute of Project Management, AIPM, as a Certified Practicing Project Practitioner, or CPPP, after you have become an associate member and paid the relevant fees. Lastly, but most importantly, is the Project Management Body of Knowledge, or PMBOK. This book is published by the Project Management Institute and is the key reference book for project management. It is a key reading resource for this course. If you would like to obtain a copy of the PMBOK guide, you can obtain it online via various outlets such as Amazon. This course is structured with a mix of theory and practical activities. The practical activities undertaken during the course will cover the entire life cycle of the project and will contribute to your assessment. In addition, you must complete a workplace assignment through which you will demonstrate your ability to apply your knowledge in the workplace. If you do not currently work in a project environment, you can simulate your project. Simulation involves developing all the required documentation for your portfolio of evidence, or POE. A complete POE is a collection of project documentation which demonstrates your application of the competencies required for Certificate 4. A comprehensive POE will be presented as part of this post-course assignment. You will also need to demonstrate underpinning knowledge through answering questions which are located in the Assessment Record Book, or ARB. Now let's start talking about project management. Why do we need it? I'm sure you have all experienced the ever-increasing pace of change in your workplace. Management wants results as quickly as possible in order to meet competitive pressures. The best way to achieve change as quickly as possible is to focus attention on implementing that change. And the best way of doing this is by setting up projects where people can work in a well-organized environment which supports both the people and processes involved in producing the change. Change can cover all types of initiatives, from building construction, computer systems, through to changes in business processes or organizational structures. These days, most organizations manage the implementation of change through projects. What are the major benefits of project management? Firstly, it enables consistent processes to be used. The same project management processes are applied regardless of industry. Of course, different industries or organizations will demand differing emphasis on project processes, depending on the type of change required. Secondly, project management supports the setup of focused teams led by a project manager. This results in the project being a self-supporting functional unit which can work towards achieving the desired goal. This focused environment enables quicker implementation of change, better accountability to management, and most importantly, greater probability of success. There is now a huge increase in the demand for project management skills. Qualified and experienced project managers and project specialists are sought after and very well remunerated. PMBOK defines a project as a temporary endeavour undertaken to create a unique product or service or result. A temporary endeavour means that a project has a defined start and finish point and a clearly defined target. No two projects are ever exactly the same. The output will always be unique, even though it may be similar to a previous project. At the very least, the way it is managed will be modified by learnings from a previous project. Projects utilize resources. There is a need to acquire and use resources such as people, equipment and materials in order to produce the final outcome. This may result in conflicts and competition for resources, both from within and outside the organization. Finally, a project is always risky. Some projects, such as those using or creating new technology, will be more risky than one which is using a well-tested approach. For example, the cost of building a project home is more likely to be closer to the original estimate than an architect-designed concept home with unusual features or building methods. Some examples of projects are a design and development of a computer system, construction of a building, or creation of an advertising campaign. There is a difference between project management and business management. Project management is focused on creating and managing change, whereas business management is about managing the day-to-day business of an organization. Change also occurs in the business management environment, but it tends to be incremental change or improvements to existing processes. This means that people who work on projects must be the type of people who embrace change and are happy in a less secure environment. Projects tend to be very dynamic, so project work tends to suit people who find a certain amount of uncertainty challenging. People who prefer a more predictable work environment, supported by well-proven processes and a long-term management structure, will be happier working in a business support environment. A stakeholder is an individual or organization which is involved in or may be affected by the project. Typical project stakeholders which must be managed by the project manager are the project team, the customer, who may be internal to the organization or external, the project sponsor, the person who has overall control of the project and provides funding for the project, business stakeholders, that is, other people in the organization who are contributing to or are impacted by the project, vendors, that is, organizations or individuals who are providing goods or services for the project, and pressure groups, such as the general community or unions. Stakeholders may have a positive or negative impact on the project, depending on whether they embrace the change that the project will bring about. All stakeholders must be carefully managed, but it is important to pay special attention to any negative stakeholders. Their concerns need to be understood and an action plan put in place to try to create a positive outcome. A strong negative stakeholder can be the cause of project failure. The project manager has a big and important role. He or she is ultimately responsible for all the aspects of the project and for producing a successful result. He or she must also manage all the people associated with the project or stakeholders. The role of the project manager is very visible within the organization and requires both skill, perseverance, and lots of motivation. This means that a project manager must be well-rounded. He or she must have people skills, be able to lead and motivate a team, communicate at all levels in the organization, influence and negotiate with stakeholders. On the other hand, a project manager must also have detailed process skills, be able to plan and organize, problem solve, and achieve targets through applying rigorous monitoring and control throughout the project. People who are weak in either of these two skills will not make suitable project managers. There are 9 key elements or knowledge areas associated with project management. They are scope, time, cost, quality, risk, human resources, communication, procurement, and integration. Please note that integration, which is project coordination or management, is not assessed at the Certificate 4 level. The following slides will provide a high-level explanation of each knowledge area. Scope management. Project scope management involves defining and producing the project's products or services. It is important that the project produces what the customer really wants, so understanding and documenting customer requirements will enable the project scope to be defined. Scope definition involves defining all the work which needs to be done to deliver what the customer wants. A good scope definition will be the platform from which all the project can be planned and controlled. Once the project scope has been defined, it is important that it be reviewed and approved by the project sponsor and any other key project stakeholders. During the execution of the project, it is inevitable that changes will be requested. However, project change must be well defined and controlled, otherwise the project will get out of control and may result in failure, or at the best, an unhappy customer. We'll discuss methods for controlling scope in Module 3. Time management. Time management is all about scheduling. Every project must have time targets to achieve. Of course, the amount of time taken to deliver the project outcomes will depend on the amount of work required to produce those outcomes, as well as the human resources available to work on the project. All of this involves a lot of planning. The end result of this planning is the project schedule. The initial schedule is called the baseline schedule and will be used to guide and control the project throughout its life. Meeting project objectives within the identified time frame is a critical factor in determining project success. Cost management. Cost management includes processes required to identify, analyze and refine project costs to produce an overall cost estimate. This is then broken down over time intervals to create a budget. Project expenditure can then be monitored and controlled by comparing actual expenditure against the budget. Cost management is also critical to the success of the project, and it is the responsibility of every team member, not just the project manager. Quality management. Quality, together with time, cost and scope, is a factor which is critical to the success of any project. Quality relates to how people, products and processes contribute to the success of the project, and how this will be measured and assessed. Quality of all project deliverables are a result of the application of objective standards and processes to achieve the largely subjective goal of customer satisfaction. There are three major processes which contribute to a quality outcome. Quality planning, that is, identifying which standards and processes will be applied to ensure customer satisfaction. Quality assurance, which is the application of those processes and standards throughout the project. And quality control, which is the act of checking project results to determine whether they comply with the predefined quality standards. Risk management. Risks are events which may happen and may adversely affect the project outcomes. Risk must be managed throughout the project through applying the following processes. Firstly, risk identification, determining what the possible risks may be. Risk analysis, determining the probability of the risk occurring and the impact on the project if it does. Risk response planning, developing options and action plans to reduce the threats to the project. And risk monitoring, risks must be constantly reviewed throughout the project. Human resource management. Management of the people involved in the achievement of the project objectives is known as Human Resource Management, or HRM. It involves the selection and development of individuals and sub-teams into a cohesive project unit with a common purpose of meeting project objectives. Human resource management requires planning for the most appropriately skilled people to join the project team at predetermined times. It involves recruiting the team members, training, development and performance management, resolution of issues and conflict, and releasing resources at the end of the project. Communications management. Project communications management provides a critical link between people, ideas and information at all stages of the project life cycle. To ensure that this is managed appropriately throughout the project, It is important to produce a communication plan at the beginning of the project. The purpose of this plan is to determine and document the communication needs of each stakeholder group associated with the project and gain approval of the plan. Key elements of communication management are information distribution, that is, ensuring that information is stored safely and correct versions are made available to the right people at the right time. Performance reporting, which is gathering project status information, summarizing it, and ensuring that key stakeholders are kept up to date with regard to all aspects of the project status. It is also important to review the success of communication methods throughout the project and make improvements to ensure that it is effective. I'm sure you have all experienced the impact of poor communication at some time in the past. Misunderstandings and lack of information caused by poor or inappropriate communication will inevitably cause conflict and demotivation amongst the project team. Procurement management. Procurement management involves the management of all activities associated with the identification and acquisition of goods and services required for the project. Project purchases must be planned according to the procurement guidelines of the organization and integrated into the project schedule. Procurement processes may be formal, that is, tendering, or informal, such as quotations, or using preferred suppliers. Once an agreement or contract is formalized with the vendor's work must be monitored and managed throughout the project to ensure that the work is being delivered according to the original contract. At the end of the project, the goods or services must be formally accepted and the contract terminated. Integration management. Integration is the management of the overall project scope across all the previously mentioned knowledge areas in order to achieve the project goals and objectives. It involves managing changes and conflicts and ensuring all stakeholders are kept informed and satisfied. The project manager is responsible for overall project coordination and producing the project outcomes. Although it is important for team members to understand these processes, this function is not assessed at the Certificate 4 level. It is a major component of the diploma assessment. All the knowledge areas described in the previous slides will be covered in detail in the remaining course modules. Key project controls. Scope, time, cost and quality are called the key project controls. This is because they all interact and influence each other. If one of the controls changes during a project, then at least one of the other controls must also change. For example, if a project gets behind schedule, then in order to rectify the situation, it is necessary to either spend more money on more resources or overtime, or perhaps reduce scope. The option of compromising quality is not recommended, as it should only be done with extreme care and full approval of the customer. The key project controls are the major focus of all status or project reports and will provide the project sponsor with a picture of the health of the project. The project life cycle. PMBOK defines 5 generic phases in the project life cycle. These are initiation, getting the project approved and funded; planning, working out how to make the project happen, taking all the knowledge areas into consideration; executing, putting the project plan into action and producing the project deliverables, that is, the products or services; controlling. This phase runs concurrently with the execution phase. It involves measuring the progress of the project against the baseline plan to determine if it is progressing as expected. If not, then appropriate actions must be put in place to keep it under control. Closing. This is the phase where the project deliverables are handed over to the customer, contracts finalised, and resources released. It is also the time to reflect upon project successes and think about what could have been done better. Project phases may have different names in other organisations or textbooks. However, they can all fit within the generic PMBOK-defined project phases. The main outcome of the project initiation phase is to get the project off the ground. This means that the project needs to be justified in terms of business viability at either a high or detailed level in order to obtain funding for the project from the project sponsor. In order to obtain approval and funding, a high-level concept paper or a more detailed business case is normally produced and presented to the project sponsor or executive committee. At this point in time, the key stakeholders are identified and a high-level scope statement produced, supported by a cost-benefit analysis. Once approval and funding is obtained, the project can then move forward to the planning phase. Planning is the most important project phase. It is the phase in which the customer's requirements are verified, the scope refined, and a plan for managing the entire project is drawn up. This will also include all the baseline plans such as the schedule and budget against which the project will be monitored and controlled. The planning phase can be quite lengthy, but the effort put into this phase will reap rewards during the execution and control phases, as the project will have a detailed roadmap to follow. Projects that are well planned will have fewer problems, less rework, and have a greater probability of success. The key deliverable from the planning phase is the Project Management Plan, or PMP, which must be signed off by the project sponsor and other key stakeholders as required. Execution and control. Once the planning phase is complete, the project is ready to start putting the PMP into action. At this point in time, the full project team is formed and work on producing the deliverables commences in earnest. This is the phase where most of the project funds are spent. At the same time, the project manager, often supported by team leaders and project administration staff, must monitor progress against the baseline plans produced during the planning phase. The project sponsor and key stakeholders must be kept informed of progress and of any key issues and risks. Problem solving is also a key activity during this phase. The final outputs from this phase are the project deliverables, that is, the products and services that will be handed over to the customer. Close and evaluate. Projects must be closed down in an orderly manner. This phase is often not done well. The result is that finalization activities are left undone when project staff move on to new challenges, resulting in an unhappy customer and a negative impact on the success of the project. The closing phase must include formal handover of the project deliverables to the customer and final sign-off. All knowledge areas must be reviewed to ensure that there has been a formal close down of their associated plans and that there are no loose ends. In addition, the project should be formally reviewed by the stakeholders in order to analyse the successes and also to identify any lessons learnt so they can be applied to future projects. A formal report called a Project Evaluation Report or Post-Implementation Review Report is produced and signed off by the project sponsor. This ends Module 1. There are no formal assignments for this module. Please read Module 1 of your UNEP textbook and then progress to Module 2.